So there were 4 short films we were required to make. The first film was called The Unexpected. Our story based on a boy who visualizes himself in his own world as a superhero, but in reality he uses a bin liner as a cape and appears rather ordinary, which is the twist behind the superhero film. Here are 2 quotes that I found helpful in my role as the first AD for The Unexpected film. I strongly agree with these quotes. I learned a lot about the different departments when it comes to filmmaking. Working with the director, I helped coordinate the production activity and gave guidance to the cinematographer by discussing the shots from the shot list provided by the director. Working with the producer, I made sure there was enough time for the shootings, so we didn't miss our deadline. By looking at the script and shooting schedule helped me to organise and visualise the structure of the shoot days taking place. This helped me to know what we were doing on each day. I was also making sure that the characters had their costumes. I bought the costume and mask for Kevin, as this is a typical convention for superheroes in terms of props for the mise-en-scène. We collaborated well as a team and we contributed to pay equally between us, as it was all organised from the budget list, which I was overseeing with the producer, so there was nothing missing for the shoot days, which would have caused delays otherwise. Having got all the props we wanted for the production, we were able to create the aesthetics we needed to make a superhero film. The Unexpected, inspired by Spider-Man in 2002, was what gave us the look of the film, as well as portraying our characters. We wanted our protagonist to be portrayed similarly to Peter Parker, who appears as a nerd and quite geeky, which was the type of character and personality that was portrayed in Spider-Man. We adapted this as we were telling a story about a boy who imagines himself as a superhero, and the audience watched this. They believed that he is strong with these superhero powers, like how Spider-Man has his web shooters, but in reality both characters appear very ordinary and seen as teens in society. Therefore, our inspiration also from Spider-Man was about bringing the worlds together from a superhero's perspective, as well as the reality of a teen boy. Additionally, when pre-planning The Unexpected, I felt that looking at Marvel comic books was helpful, as we wanted to visualize how we would edit the footage to adapt the comic book strip style. Our editor used effects at the beginning of the film, which did set the genre to the audience, so they already knew what they were watching. In terms of health and safety measures, it was raining on a shoot day, so I held an umbrella above the camera to prevent damage to the equipment. In these weather conditions, it would be ideal to also have a rain sleeve instead of holding the umbrella, so that I could work more effectively on set instead of multitasking. Another health and safety measure on set was that Kevin was running across the road, and this was a medium level risk because only a few cars were passing. But as the first AD, I did need to alert Kevin when cars were coming, so I would tell Kevin to wait before running for the scene. Film 2 was called The Promise, which was about a man who becomes suspicious and believes her to be cheating on him. His thoughts spiral out of control, making him want to get revenge on her, when all she was doing was planning a surprise anniversary party for him. In this film, my role was the producer, and I worked closely with the director to understand the vision he had for the film he wanted to make. We had discussions to develop the ideas, which helped to create a strong outcome. There were several inspirations that we used to create The Promise. For example, Eyes Wide Shut, directed by Stanley Kubrick. There was a scene where Dr. William Harvard had intrusive thoughts that he was being cheated on, which demonstrates the state of paranoia. This was something that the director and I wanted to reflect on in terms of the character's behaviour in our film. This would be presented through our protagonist Tyler, and we presented this from his perspective as he thinks he's getting cheated on. Another example was Silver Linings Playbook, where we see a man talking to a therapist, and there is a similar ideology to Taxi Driver, which connect the sub-theme of vengeance and the strong emotion conveyed, which is insanity and delusional, as the characters from both films want to solve the situation violently, like how Travis Bickle treats the men who abused the girl in the room. Therefore, these characters share same personality traits, and this was the exact persona the director and I was aiming to achieve from the portrayal of Tyler in The Promise. In pre-production, we thought carefully about the lighting to use, which would reflect the character of Tyler, similar to Travis. The lighting in Taxi Driver has very low-key lighting, and yet hard contrast throughout most of the film. To adapt this, we thought about having low-key lighting on Tyler and hard lighting towards the end to make him look mysterious and evil. Additionally, for my role, I was searching for potential actors in a professional way by using Star Now. I received audition tapes from actors, and once I felt that was strong, I discussed with my director and we shortlisted them, which I think we did well as we had lots of responses. Additionally, for my role, I did budgeting, so having talked to the crew and the director, we paid equally in the end for the total cost of the props used. I also did the shooting schedule. The first draft was a rough guide to understand when we were shooting. The final shooting schedule helped us to know the exact film shooting days, with additional days if we needed to reshoot a scene or we use it to just edit our work. This also helped to manage our time wisely so that we didn't run past the deadline. Alongside organising the equipment for the shooting days, I was taking care of the risk assessment. This was so that we controlled the risk as best as we could for our safety. On the shoot days, there were several wires. However, to prevent anyone tripping, we put down tape neatly and had sandbags for the lighting to hold it down firmly, preventing hazards during production. I was also in charge of the call sheet, which had the times which had the scenes taking place. This was very useful as we knew what scenes we were shooting on the days. Alongside the call sheet, I was looking closely at the storyboard to ensure that there were no parts of the story was missed out. As shown, I was making sure on set we had a mid shot of Tyler, which was appropriate for the scenes on shoot as he was leaning against the workplace. Something that didn't go well was that when we went to one of the locations, one of our props disappeared, which was a bench. This was a situation that was easy to fix as we had the actors sit on the grass rather than on the bench, and this could have been more chaotic. Therefore, in the future, to prevent this, we would come before the shooting day so that there are no surprises that could change our story. The third film I done was called The Plunge. My role in this project was sound and writer. Having read Digital Filmmaking by Mike Figgis, there was a reference from chapter 4, page 41, which I felt related to my role. The quote stated this, and I felt I can refer to this in terms of creating my idea and trying to make sure that the crew members knew what I was trying to create. Therefore, I wrote several drafts of the script on cell text alongside with the inspirations that I got from the films to present a clear visual idea. The film was about a man who takes a plunge into a book that he was reading on a train. He immerses himself into the world of the story where he's in a maze and tries to escape before time runs out, but it turns out he doesn't make it out on time, which leaves him gasping when reading the book and throws the book on a chair as he runs out of the train. There were several inspirational films I looked at, which were Never Ending Story, The Shining, and Alice in Wonderland. The most influential one, I would say, was Never Ending Story, as my idea adapted from the concept of being immersed in a book and imagining becoming one of the characters. This allowed the audience to connect to the reader in the story who reads the book, because when reading the book we take the perspective of the characters. The location of filming in the maze was hugely inspired by Alice in Wonderland, which immediately puts the audience in different environment they don't always have in films. This too ties in with The Shining, because I visualized my character running in a maze that had high hedges, which made it harder for the character to escape. There was a problem in regards to the location. Online the hedges looked tall, which I felt was a good sign, so it was similar to the visual idea like in The Shining. However, when we got there on the shoot day, the hedges looked quite low. To solve the issue for next time, I would have more pre-production days for the shooting, so that when we go to the location to see if this is what we want to present in the story, rather than having a fixed idea from what was shown online, as the photos we saw were perhaps seasonal ones from the summer. There were other problems on the shoot too, which caused some delays. I had the mixer and the XLR cable, and it didn't fit into the allocated slot as the pins inside were broken and didn't fit properly, which caused delays for sound on set. However, to fix this problem, I decided that I can still record a lot of Foley sounds, as I planned on the Zoom H5 sound recorder. Having followed several tutorials online and from sound workshops, I learned how to record the sounds on this recorder by controlling the level knobs which control preamps and the input signals for the sound. So I kept checking they're at the level that is not peaking, not too high, not too low, so there isn't difficulty in editing. I checked the settings, such as the phantom power was 48 volts for the shoot. Additionally, the record format was important in order to set an ideal sample rate and bit depth. Once recorded, I stored this as projects and files on the recorder. This was a success, as the editor did use mostly my recordings for the film. In regards to the health and safety measures on this project, is that I ensured that the wires didn't tangle, as this would be dangerous if someone tripped over them. Additionally, having had a broken mixer, I alerted Kit Store when giving back the equipment, as this would not be ideal for the next person who uses it. Film 4 was called Goodbye Mum. In our film, we'll find two characters having an awkward conversation just to find out that a guy tricked the girl into paying for his food. However, This was not what we originally had in our script, as the original story was about a woman who lies to a girl in the shop, making her believe she looks like her late daughter just to find out she was tricked into paying for her shopping. The inspiration was from Fee Gag, as we had a similar concept of someone being stared at, making them feel uncomfortable, which would have been a type of portrayal that when the lady has her eyes on the girl when she's shopping. Unfortunately, our producer didn't find actors or location, and we couldn't get hold of her on the day of the shooting, which led to us improvising. We all shared the role of being the producer. Luckily, we were able to have a location for just over an hour, so we had to shoot quickly. We rushed, which wasn't ideal. As the cinematographer for this project, it was hard to shoot without a shot list, because it was hard to understand what shot types my director would have wanted, as we didn't know beforehand about where we were shooting, so it was hard to prepare. But also, due to the story changing from one thing to the other, made it more challenging to follow and therefore harder to shoot as a cinematographer. However, during the shooting, myself and the group were discussing ideas how we can shoot and what types we wanted, and we did this very well, even though it was verbal. However, still due to the rush of things, our outcome wasn't how we intended it to be, as mentioned before, and also this changed our message in the film. We didn't portray the characters as well as we had planned in the script. However, when I read Digital Filmmaking by Mike Figgis, it mentioned on page 106 an important reference when working with actors, which was this. This helped me as a cinematographer to understand and imagine, to think beyond the intended idea from the script. Even though it was hard having an hour to shoot in the location we got, I was also having to control how the story would be presented. We had a location in the restaurant where we had neon lights hung on the wall. This reminded me of the light blue neon lighting in Whiplash. When shooting this scene, it was hard when I was shooting at times as I didn't have a monitor with this camera. For example, this wide shot which pans to the right as the actress turns to the corner to walk to her seat. So I felt I lost opportunities to take a shot of the neon lights in a more better way than it was there, and as there was too much exposure of the neon lights. Additionally, some shots don't have the same white balance. I noticed that I had the white balance too high when he changed places to sit next to the girl. Personally, I felt that the first shot of the actor before he came to sit with the girl was more better. Once he sat with the girl, there was more exposure, as I realised that I had the Kelvin too high, which was 5400K, which I should have changed when my actor changed to sit somewhere else. Therefore, for next time, I would decrease the Kelvin of the white balance. Having a HDMI cable to connect the screen of the monitor with the camera would have been ideal too. So having a HDMI cable and monitor, I would have been able to see better what I was shooting. However, the shot of him when he's by himself and getting up to sit next to the girl was a good shot, as I tried to achieve connecting the audience with the actors by using camera movements such as the tilt as he gets up. For the health and safety aspect, I tried to use the tripod as carefully as I could and alerting people not to trip over it. Also making sure that on set I handled the lens with care by not putting my fingertips on it, and to make sure they go in their designated bags, which is very important as it's expensive and didn't want anything going missing if it were to be misplaced somewhere.